Order, order, order. This budget session of the Pontiac City Council is hereby called to order. Roll call. I'll forego the invocation of the pledge. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Carrington,
Present.
Goodman, James, McGinnis,
Present.
Nicholson,
Here.
Parker, Rutherford.
Present.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Quorum being established. I'll do a motion to excuse council members for personal reasons, although I am anticipating them all to come, but this may be so brief that we might be done before they come. Could I please excuse council members Goodman, Parker, and James for personal reasons?
Moved by Carrington.
Support.
Moved by Carrington, supported by Melanie Rutherford. Any hearing, no discussion. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Carrington,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
All right, that motion carries. They are excused accordingly. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Rutherford, seconded by Carrington. Could I please have a motion to amend the agenda that's now before us to add, after public comment, resolution to proceed in closed session to consider and discuss a confidential legal opinion concerning the city's legal obligations regarding the Phoenix Center and budget-related implications?
So moved.
Supported.
Moved by Nicholson, supported by Rutherford. So that, hearing no discussion, the roll call now is on amending the agenda to add that resolution after public comment, but before adjournment. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. So now we're back to the agenda adoption as amended. Any more amendments or discussion, Councilman?
Point of information, when we go into closed session, can we go for the administrative side and get that noise thing so that it's playing while we're in closed session?
Sure. Yeah, there'll be no issue.
Huh? Okay, well, we need that. Thank you. That's it.
Cool. We will need 5 council members present in order to go into closed session.
Okay, I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
We'll determine that. But yes, hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the agenda as amended. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Nicholson,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington.
Yes.
4 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We'll proceed accordingly with the adopted agenda. We are now at the department hearings for finance. Give the floor to the administration.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to introduce our Finance Director, Tim Sadowski, to kick things off, and then he can delegate to his division leaders as he deems appropriate.
Hello. The Finance Department has an organizational chart that has 3 divisions, which is made up in department order of Income Tax, Finance Administration, Purchasing, and Treasury. You can see our organizational chart. There is 1 new position listed in that organizational chart. It was listed at the bottom because it's new, but it is actually under Finance Administration. So it will be under SACAR if it went over. But that is the only change to the current organizational chart that the Finance Department is requesting.
Since we have this up, do you want to give us a prognosis? So it looks like there's, for income tax for the deputy administrator, that position is still vacant?
That position is still vacant. So is the income tax specialist. There's been discussion about recruitment, about wages, etc., and the difficulties the city has had trying to fill those positions.
But they're currently both posted, correct? And is that true for accounts payable and receivable manager?
Correct. Those interviews are happening starting this week and going through next week.
And finally, payroll supervisor, which would be, like you mentioned, under finance administration. that's contingent upon this budget being enacted, but the proposal creates this new position.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Other discussion on the organization of the department? Pro
Yes.
Tem and then Councilwoman?
Thank you, President McGinnis. I guess my concern is that what ways are you advertising these jobs? Because I just seem like it's not getting out to the public.
Yeah, so I can take that. We just got done attending a couple of job fairs, and we have been attending fairs as they've come up. But primarily, they have been on the main websites that you would expect. So through ADP, they get to ZipRecruiter. They're also on our website, and we have used a couple of professional organizations where they can also be listed. The issue is actually very similar to the issue that we had with the finance director, where we get tons of applications, but just not as many individuals who are necessarily the qualifications that we want. And that goes back to what the finance director was saying as far as the pay structure versus what we're offering. We're finding that we are just losing out to the private sector many times. And the finance director and the HR director right now are actually working on some additional information to make suggestions about structural structural changes that they think we need to make to our pay schedule to be more competitive in the market. One second, I will say that we know that right now we are very much in the middle, but in the middle is just not cutting it.
Can I have a follow-up question? And I guess for a position like income tax specialist, so we have major universities that's around the city of Pontiac. So have you been reaching out to some of these departments? Because college students coming out with a four-year degree, some of these positions seem like they can be able to meet those qualifications.
So that we haven't done. We were actually focusing on looking for individuals who had some experience, and that's where the issues came up. And the reason we were looking for individuals with some experience is, given the skeleton crew that we're actually dealing with, we were looking at the time and cost of training and bringing people all the way up to speed. But again, given the time that we're looking at, we may just have to eat that cost of training.
Thank you. No follow-up.
Councilwoman Rutherford?
Two questions. I'm going to be referring to the accounts receivable manager job. Is that pay equivalent to what the average other cities are paying for that type of job? I know how much it's paying in Auburn Hills. Are we equivalent to that, or even close to what they're paying?
So I don't know about Auburn Hills specifically, but I will say that the study that we did last year, when we picked, I want to say it was 4 cities that we looked at and indexed ourselves against. And we were not at the top of the pay scale. We were not at the bottom of the pay scale. We were very solidly in the middle. And that's what I'm saying. We are in range for municipalities, but the problem is we're not just fighting municipalities. We're fighting the private sector, and they are just, they're beating us on accounting staff. They're beating us on engineering staff. When it comes to other staff, that's just skilled but not necessarily heavily focused, our solid in the middle is working, right? We're getting those positions filled in a timely fashion.
Okay, my follow-up is this. That job is, I didn't see it online, so have you looked up to LinkedIn also to use that as a way for to advertise? Because LinkedIn is very key to people that's trying to look for jobs. And also, there was an upcoming job fair today, and I know the city was there, but the problem is when we go, I'm just telling you, the type of people that you want to attract, it's not going to be in that type of job fair. So you're going to have to, change it up. That's all. That's it.
Any other discussion on this organizational chart, Mayor Grimal?
Yeah, thanks. I did just want to amplify the point that the deputy mayor made, which is I do think we need to be more creative and a little more innovative and aggressive in promoting these positions. So that point is heard loud and clear, and I think that's right. I will just say, though, that anecdotally, my sense is, having talked to some other municipality leaders, that we're not the only municipality really struggling to fill a lot of these positions. It would appear that when it comes to a wide array of positions where additional qualifications are needed than sort of the run-of-the-mill qualifications, that a lot of municipalities have been struggling to fill positions like finance director, city engineer, and like positions. So, it's obviously a very tough labor market in general, including for private sector employers, and obviously municipalities almost universally don't pay as much as private sector employers. So it is a very challenging time, but all the more reason why we need to be more innovative, more aggressive, more assertive. And we do want to participate in local job fairs because we're pursuing hiring of folks, not just for some of these high-level positions or more technical positions, but we often are hiring people for more run-of-the-mill positions, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to advertise those opportunities as well to local residents. But your point is well taken, that those kinds of run-of-the-mill job fairs, which we've just started engaging in to the credit of our Human Resources Department, are unlikely to fill some of these really more technical level positions.
All right, thank you for allowing that sidebar, a series of questions, but figured it'd be helpful and relevant. But it's worth taking stock that this time last year, we didn't have as much organization. There weren't as many players on the field in Team Pontiac Finance, so we definitely acknowledge that the roster is stronger now, and we're grateful for everyone who's been on Team Finance for a minute, but also those new recruits as well, while you look through collaboration with the Human Resources team to fill out the roster even more. Any other question about the organization of the Finance Department? Please continue, Mr. Director.
The Finance Department's mission statement is to provide proper recording and oversight of the city's finances and to develop and maintain excellent access to capital for needed uses as they arise. And we do this through using the accounting cycle. Most people say, what's an accounting cycle if you're not an accountant? And it's pretty much, you start with a transaction. Anything can be a transaction. It could be a payment. It could be any sort of financial transaction. We record that and post it. It becomes just a posting. Any adjustments that are done become into a financial statement. You make sure that the financial statement is good. You close it out, and then you start again with the next transaction. So it's a circle, right? You're constantly getting checks, you're constantly writing payments and paying invoices, and accounting and finance never ends. It's ongoing. So that's why they call it the accounting cycle. It's just repeating over and over again. The second part of that is modified accrual accounting. Most people don't know what modified accrual accounting is. They think everything is cash basis, like at home. I write a check, I take in a payment, that's when it should be recorded. Governments don't work that way, and instead, I highlighted the important section. It is a bookkeeping system that combines the simplicity of a cash accounting with the more sophisticated ability of accrual accounting to match related revenues and expenditures. So in short, we're matching the revenues with the associated expenditures in the correct period. So it's not when we get the cash or when we spend the cash, it's when the service was performed and when that revenue was earned. So there's a difference. So most governments go and change their cash basis accounting into accrual for June 30th in your financial statements, which is historically what the city of Pontiac has been doing. Finance is going to the next step. We are implementing monthly modified accrual accounting. What that means is throughout the year, your year-to-date is actually how your audited financial statements would look every month rather just than at June 30th. Why we do that is because all those audit work papers that most CPAs and accountants sit in their office from July till the September are gone because we're doing it essentially all year long. That saves the city money and contracted accounting services and staff time, and that's why we were making those changes. To make those changes, you have to use the modules that the city provided for us. We already have all the modules, we just have to program them. So we are diligently programming all the BSNA modules, which is our accounting software, for the month of May and June, so we are ready to go July 1st for the next accounting cycle. So that's what we're doing here in finance. That brings me up to the next slide that says payroll. Everybody commonly thinks payroll is a simple thing. I get my payroll check and I go spend my money. Well, there's a lot that goes into payroll. Payroll combines hours, vacation, benefits, health insurance, dental, FMLA, every single thing you can think of affects payroll. So it's not that simple. On top of it, government has funds, which is piles of sources that the money or expenditures have to be used for. So you multiply all those payrolls into all those funds, and all those departments has to be accurately recorded. And that's what you get for your monthly financials. So the problem in finance and the payroll world is we are using outsourcing to a other vendor. The problem with that is we have to import those transactions and record them instead of using the software that the city has already purchased. And by using the software that the city has already purchased, it becomes real-time posting. So all those wages, benefits, and everything else I listed, as soon as payroll is ran and the checks are deposited in everybody's accounts, the transactions are posted to the general ledger, and you have immediate real-time posting of essentially over half of your expenditures for the city.
Deputy Mayor?
So just to add, the Finance Subcommittee is very familiar with this issue, but the rest of council and the general public watching may not be. Currently, we have a real issue. Director Sadowski touched on it with the fact that because we are using a third-party software, all of that information that he just said is not current and up to date. We were able to program BSNA to bring us up to date, and everyone might think, okay, well, if you were able to program it to bring you up to date, why can't you just program it to keep you up to date going forward? And the reason for that is simple, but the simple answer will often elude us. We were able to program it because everything that has been done is done and static and not going to change. So we can program for all of the anomalies that we know of. If anything changes, if we hire someone, if we give someone a raise, if we have to pay someone back pay, if anything changes, it has to be completely reprogrammed for that change. Completely reprogrammed. So it actually is more effort to keep reprogramming it than it is to just use the BSNA software.
Councilman Rutherford?
So I guess, how do we know exactly what we have or if there is a deficit using this type of stuff?
Using what we're currently doing or
Yeah.
what we're going to go to?
What we're currently using, does it show if we have a deficit? Is it 4 million, is it 3 million? Or what we're about to change, is it going to show us the actual amount of money that we have as a city as a whole? So when we're asked the question, what do we actually have, we can say, well, this is what you can go find out what it is. I'm just asking out of curiosity.
Can I respond to that? So really, what this has to do with is more about the booking of the expenses. So the actual amount that it's in any account at any time may fluctuate, but it doesn't change the end result. So a lot of times, and the deputy mayor brought this up, what we were experiencing, especially when it comes to like grants, right? So we get a grant and somebody's paid, like we might say that part of the person for housing is going to be paid out of this grant. That grant is an account number. That account number is linked to 5 other expenditures, 30, 30 different account numbers. If that person then in the future, before the next payroll, changes their deferral to their 403B or 457A, then basically all of those amounts change. What this will do is it will automatically be able to update that going forward when we make a change, because we're changing the rule, not necessarily going through every single account and changing the numbers. So there won't be any change to the bottom line number. The problem is just how those expenses are booked, and then our ability to report on those booked expenses.
But to follow up on Councilman Rutherford's question, not even specifically about payroll, about the city's finances more broadly, does going to a monthly modified accrual approach allow for a more tight and reflective and accurate snapshot that can be shared with the council and the community about where the numbers are shaking out?
Correct.
What's the true financial forecast, as well as the true current prognosis where we're at?
That is correct. It becomes almost like you're getting audited, you're showing your audited figures every month instead of just at June 30th.
So if we remained with the annual modified approach, it wouldn't be as helpful of a diagnostic as the year's going on. I mean, because where we want to go at the city council level and the Finance and Personnel Subcommittee has worked hard to move us closer in this direction, is that on a monthly basis, we truly are aware of where we're at. And, so that way we can course correct and modify, of course, with the administration and your department and your leadership to be able to help provide that. But if we're that off base, if we're playing that much catch up, it's not as quick of a diagnostic. I think that some people can wring their hands and say, why did school boards in our community, why did school boards or city councils in the past not do better? Why did they let the finances get that off course? And oftentimes it's that what they're looking at is quite a few months behind. And so if the bottom's falling out of the economy or the bottom's falling out of our city's tax base, we're not able to make as quick of a course correction on the expenditures side or, amend our budget. So that's what Councilman Rutherford is asking, gets to what Finance and Personnel has been advocating for as well, that what's shared on a monthly basis is even more illustrative of what's going on. And I think we're already there, much more so, but when the previous administration and the previous city council, when we came in, it felt as though it wasn't as sort of current, wasn't as in real time, which was a challenge for us to know the full landscape financially.
And just for me, it's because I don't want to get a conversation a year from now that we got to lay people off, as it's happened in other cities, because we don't know what the bottom line is, and I just don't want that to happen when we something happens and we can't explain it. So that's why I keep asking, what's the real bottom line? I know that wasn't a part of it, but it's been an issue for me having to try to explain, well, is there a deficit? Is there not a deficit? How much is the deficit is? What's the real number? So that's why I just want to know, like how when I do my budget, I can say how much I spent, what's in my account, and what's not there. I just need it to be as plain and simple as possible. So that's what I'm asking for.
So the answer to that question is the Finance Department has scheduled, and it's on the next council agenda, to bring our year-to-date actual numbers on a monthly basis by August 30th.
Thank you.
Cool. Councilman Nicholson?
Yeah, I think finance was running into a similar issue that this will certainly help correct. Then a lot of departments have historically is that just that history, is that the person who is there is great at forecasting because they understand how the cycle of things work. Bringing somebody new ever into the equation would be very difficult if we were all on a bus type scenario. So that in this situation, right, as we are right now, somebody coming in this next year would be comparing apples to oranges, whereas we're able to start getting more on track to say, what does a normal February look like? And when we're looking at variance, we'll be talking about a change in someone's procedure or policy, not just that this is the way they booked it 3 years ago. So it'll be a more concise operation.
Please proceed.
So moving forward, we already have the BSNA payroll module. We'll have to convert the back data for the last 2 years. The only purchase we will need is the online platform that allows employees to get their check stubs and W-2s, which they currently can do on ADP. So that's the only noticeable change that an employee will see, is that they can get their W-2s and check stubs on the new online platform. Their timekeeping, their human resources, everything done by the personnel department will stay the same.
Is that cost baked, the online platform for BSNA, is that already incorporated and expended, or will that be in this coming fiscal year?
It'll be coming up in 2024.
Okay.
So that's really the financial change. That's the financial impact cost. We move on to income taxes. We have good news. Year to date, you can see the city has collected $16.2 million compared to $18.5 million. And we still have 2 months left in the fiscal year. So we're hoping to exceed that, which will help the budget and help pay our expenditures. The detail is in the next slide, and you can see the collections for each month going back through 2015, 2016 to the last fiscal year. Yes.
Just so that the audience at home hears it, what's the number we've collected in income tax? It's very important that you say that again. What's the amount?
It was $16,257,000.
Whereas what, the last year before that was what?
$18,502,000.
And we have 2 more months to go.
And we have 2 more months to go.
Cool beans. Keep going.
Okay. So the next department major highlights is purchasing. Purchasing, again, you have a purchasing department now, whereas before those positions weren't filled. You have a purchasing assistant in 2023 that just started. We have started training. We are doing new IRS W-9 forms, et cetera. You have the details on there. But all the department managers will be up here for your line item detail to answer all your questions for specifics. And then really that was the end of the major highlighted change for this fiscal year. And the department managers, like I said, again, are here to answer any of your detailed questions you have for their department.
Pro-Tem Carrington had a question?
Yeah, just one quick question. Do you see us exceeding our tax collection from 2021-22 this year?
Property tax collection or income tax collection, or both?
Both.
We have already exceeded the property tax collection. You have seen that the new chart of accounts has been somewhat implemented. The reason why Treasury works so hard to do that is so you could have a year-to-date comparison compared to next year's forecast. So some of those chart of account changes have already been implemented. Unfortunately, the city cannot contract out to make that go faster. I actually have to go through every line item detail because our software provider does not offer that service. That is why we're not fully converted in the last 4 weeks, is because I have to manually do it myself. And income tax, our income tax administrator is here, and he can tell you everything you could possibly want to know about income tax. But yes, we are going to exceed, we believe, last year's numbers.
Okay. And my follow-up question, I know in the past,
Yes.
we haven't had a pretty robust system of making sure that we collect our 1% for those that work in the city of Pontiac. How are we doing with that?
I'm going to defer, so.
Well, that's a question, he can get, when he get to it, when he come up.
He's
can
actually
answer
the
that
first
question.
department up, so,
Councilman Rutherford.
unless
might
you have
a
another
Is that-
question for me.
Is there any programming that we can buy to the city that would actually help expedite what is making him do it manually? Is there a program that they offer that there isn't?
No, I reached out, and unfortunately, it doesn't exist. There was 5 waves of conversions, and we're in the 5th wave now, mostly because you didn't have a finance director for the last 7 months. So now, like I said, the finance director has to manually create those transactions, and then you'll actually have a chart of account change, which says we went from 700 to 701, and that everything will flow through, and then all the numbers, history will also be changed You'll just have to get used to the new number assigned to the account name.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Carrington, you had a question?
Oh, okay. Want me to repeat it?
Yes, please.
I was just wondering, when it comes to collecting the 1% for those that come to our city to work, how are we doing with that particular system? I know in the past that system hasn't been robust, and we probably haven't been collecting enough in that arena.
Well, the tax rates are 0.5% on the
0.5%.
non-residents and 1% on the residents. So 75% of the money that's brought in from income tax is brought in by the employers, the withholding. So we follow up and get on that. We've got a couple of people that we're getting ready to take to court that they probably owe us about $50,000. We've been dealing with the city attorneys on that. But generally, most of the people, they file their tax returns, they have it withheld. As far as collecting from the non-residents, the only way that there's a tax liability is if they're engaged in business, if they're a Schedule C sole proprietorship and they live outside and they have a business inside. We need to get them to make sure they're filing the returns. I do that by working with business licensing in code enforcement. And they send me business licenses that are being applied for businesses in the city, and I look to see whether or not they filed their returns and see whether or not they have any businesses and make sure they're current.
Thank you.
Any questions on income tax administration? Councilman Rutherford.
So let's say an individual owes income tax here, but is on a fixed income. Do we have a program set up for them to be able to pay what they owe?
I'm sorry, I'm a little hard to hear.
I'm sorry, yes, sir. So let's say we have an individual who owes income tax to the city, but they are now on a fixed income. Do you have any programs put in place for them to have like monthly payments, or is there anything that we could do to offer to offset them having to pay a large amount at one time?
We don't have any formal plans. What we do have is installment plans that we work with the people depending on the amount of money that's owed. Now remember, we're dealing with a resident that has a tax on 1%. If they're on fixed income and it's pension income or Social Security, that's not taxable. So we don't tax that, so they're not paying on that. If they hit the lotto, well, then we're glad to tax that at 1%. So if they hit the lotto for $10,000, they owe us a whopping $100.
Okay, I want to make sure. Good look.
Further questions for the income tax administrator? Councilman Nicholson.
So in finance and administration, we spoke in this last meeting about some changes with the department and having people. Are we anticipating any staffing changes or changes to contracts with Innovative this year, or would we be taking that as amendments for when that happens?
I don't know that any of that's going to happen before the budget's adopted. I mean, we have not engaged in conversations with them, but as far as the staffing, the primary reason for the staffing is not just for processing the returns, because Innovative does that. We're going to use these people to work on collections and compliance, making sure that my perspective is if there's somebody who's running for office, whether it's city, state, school district, or municipal, whatever, if they're running and they're a resident of the city of Pontiac, I want to make sure they're in compliance. If they're spending city dollars, I want to make sure that they're responsible to the city. If they're doing businesses, like I said, through the compliance with the code enforcement, business licenses, I want to make sure they're in compliance. I want to make sure that vendors that we deal with, make sure that they're in compliance. So there's a lot of avenues to pursue. We also have to pursue those people that do not file tax returns, non-filers. And that's the big chunk that we could pursue and try to generate a lot more revenue.
Okay, my question is related to the $50,000 increase along the professional services innovative software line. Is that just a regular contract renewal, or what's the purpose of the additional $50,000?
The increase is based on the fact that the quantities of product that they're performing. The services that they provide are unit-based in the fee structure in their contract. So a lot of their fees, if, for example, imaging, when they scan all of the tax returns, originally it may have been 10,000 tax returns that were being imaged. Now it could be like 50,000 or 100,000. So there's a lot of things that are going on. Scanning of electronic returns, we had an increase of 8% in the returns that were filed this past year. And currently like last year, it was 47% of our tax returns that were filed were electronically filed. but
Okay.
we're
So
paying
it's,
for that.
in other words, it's a scaling cost, it's not a contract renewal.
I'm sorry?
It's a scaled cost,
Yeah,
it's not a
it's a
contract
quantity,
renewal. Okay.
quantity
Okay.
of service.
Yep, thank you.
Pro Tem.
Yes, one question concerning other professional services. I know in the past it wasn't no budget for that, and then you were requesting 25,000.
That line item, I'm looking for the possibility of, since I'm having trouble getting staff, maybe have to rely on maybe getting a debt collectors.
Thank you.
But I would want to make sure I've got them on a tight rein, that they're not harassing people.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman.
So my question is, if you use debt collectors, would they be trained on how our approach is versus how, other debt collectors can be? So
I would attempt to have a working relationship with them, making sure they have a good rapport, that we're not, not storming down any doors. We're just saying you've got to come and collect and you got to pay, and these are the things, and if you're not, we're going to take you to court.
Okay.
Because we do have civil actions provided under the ordinance.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you both for flagging that, and I'm glad the budget will at least have that tool in your toolbox if the need arises, but hopefully it won't have to even come to that you'll be able to have the capacity. Other discussion on income tax administration?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm back for finance administration if there's any questions about finance administration.
Councilman Nicholson.
Costs related to updating those softwares and different modules, where are those baked in?
They are not in this budget. They are in the software.
So in
Information
the
technology.
IT budget, okay, all right, thank you.
Good question. Other finance administration items, and we can come back to it, Pro Tem Carrington.
You increase other professional services by 5,000. What do you plan on doing with that extra?
That is if we needed extra staff, but now we are hiring, so hopefully we fill those positions and don't need. All our departments sound the same, right? Hopefully we fill those positions and we don't need any other professional services.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Rutherford.
This is a question for the administration. So we're giving raises 3% across the board, correct? Including people that just came on, they automatically get the 3%, or are we doing it case by case?
We have budgeted for 3% across the board raises, including for those who have recently come on board, starting July 1st. There is one exception where the proposed salary increase is larger than a 3% raise in the interest of transparency, and that is for the director of the grants department.
My follow, I'm glad you said, so my follow-up would be, after this year, are we, we talked about the evaluations, are we ever gonna get to the point where we're evaluating case by case, who should get the raise and who should not get the raise?
That is a great question, Councilwoman. And as you heard me talk when we had the HR department up here, we are working towards putting in strategies that will make us a more desirable place to work. So the short answer to that question is yes, we hope to get to that point. The long answer to that question is, as was stated before, the 3% adjustment is a cost of living adjustment and is not based on actual performance. We have spoken with our attorney, and we do have the ability, as long as we program it properly, to do performance-based or merit-based increases, which we hope to be able to schedule. But as of right now, we still are projecting a significant operating deficit. And so until we get to a point where we feel that we are in striking distance of eliminating that just wasn't something that we felt comfortable introducing.
I appreciate that. I just want to make sure that people are being done across the board, which you already answered, but also it's just certain jobs that are about to come up that we about to talk about, then I'm gonna ask why this person only making this amount, but somebody else getting paid when they don't do the equivalent of what this individual does.
So I can't get into the.
It's okay, I
oh,
am.
No. I would say I can't get into the specifics because obviously I don't know. But as was alluded to before, in general, there are a number of positions that our finance director and our HR director have flagged and said, hey, you guys did a really good job, but they are actually working with the finance subcommittee to bring some suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or discussion on finance administration? All right, as more questions arise, we may revert back. Who's up next? Welcome to Budget Palooza. Do you have anything before we raise questions? Is there anything that you'd like to draw our attention to in particular?
No.
First, let me just say thank you for all the work that you've done and continue to do. This time last year, such a division of the finance department did not exist, so to speak. So we're really grateful that under your leadership and hard work that it's been able to come on board, but also to be fleshed out and brought to life as
Thank you.
putting your Virgo skills to use, your detail and precision and hard work. Questions for purchasing, Councilman Nicholson?
So you're in now a couple of months, and you've got a new sort of staff structure, and that is always one of those things that we predict and make good educated guesses on whether or not we have the right positions and the right responsibilities. Do you foresee there being additional requests in the future? Or do you think you have enough resource to function in where you need to be?
I think everyone can hear me, correct? I think as the city continues to grow, and that's with departments, with resource needs in terms of commodities and services, I think we will need to grow our staff.
And then is there anything outside of, I know we've been implementing new things with BSNA and trying some different things. Is anything as far as the purchasing and requisition process, is there any automation or software needs that you think you might have in the future?
We're currently utilizing new solutions. One of them that we're trying out is Smart Sheets, which is a solution that will allow us to share contract information, solicitation information in real time with our department heads, so that they'll have that information and they can access it whether I'm here or not.
Further questions for purchasing? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up.
Last but not least, treasurer.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you so much
evening and
for your
welcome to all
continued
of you.
service to the people of Pontiac and the taxpayers. Is there anything you'd like to highlight for what is proposed that you'd in particular like us to take into consideration?
Not at this moment, but I look forward to any questions that you guys may have, and that may open up, a door for some of the other discussion that I may have concerning the
Very
budget.
good. Discussion or questions on the proposed Treasury budget, Councilman Nicholson?
First, I just want to say thank you to you for loaning your deputy to the finance department. His work in programming has been amazing, and who knew we had such a phenomenal resource in-house. Just looking at some of the variances, wanted to talk about membership dues. Is that just something that we move some things around? Or I'm just curious to know what sort of membership dues get charged to the Treasury Department.
Let's see, membership dues.
It's a small number. I'm just curious what types of member groups that we, is this specifically like a breakout to a city overall membership, or is this something we do specifically professional in your department?
Okay, yes. So we all know that we were without a deputy majority of 2022. So those membership dues, the lower number, $350, were representative of just myself. And so those membership dues include dues that's paid annually for membership to the MMTA, Michigan Municipal Treasurers Association, MGFOA, MMTA, MGFOA, and GFOA.
Cool.
And so those can exceed $500 per year. So the increases from 2022 to 2023 was to make sure that the deputy have access to those membership dues as well.
That's great. Yeah, we're certainly have been expressing our interest in having everybody really utilize those training and membership opportunities.
Yeah.
What are the length of service of the individuals in your department, those that are working in your office? They've been there for a minute. How many years has it been?
Yeah, so the longest would be my head cashier, and I believe she's been here, I would say, over 7 years. I want to say, I'm not 100% on the length, but she's been here for a while. She worked here before, left, I believe, went to the hospital, and then came back to Treasury, and she's been here. She retained, I believe she retained her seniority.
Pro Tem Carrington.
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. I don't really see too much that jumps out at me except the bank service charges. I believe that you requested a 10,000 increase in your budget.
I'm trying to.
Is that an estimated number of what you think those bank service charges are going to be, or is it based on just a
Yeah.
projection?
It's just a projection, with annual inflation and, prices increasing. It's just a projection. There isn't anything specific, that number is tied to.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Other discussions and questions for the treasurer? Oh, Deputy Mayor.
Just one quick item that the treasurer is being modest about. It's not included in the budget because this is more something that is a work of brain than necessarily a cost factor. But one of the treasurer's goals for this year is, well, two of her goals for this year are to find a better solution for electronic payments, which she is currently researching. So there's nothing in the budget, but, we may come back to ask for that as she tries to figure out what is the right solution. But additionally, we are looking into some automated payment methods, kiosk, to help make service more accessible. So the treasurer's office, for very good reason, is open to the public 30 minutes later than City Hall opens and close 30 minutes before City Hall closes. That's so that they can actually balance cash and get to and from work in a timely fashion. But if there were a kiosk available outside of the treasurer's office, people could always make payments. And so those are items that she is working on that are not necessarily reflected in the budget, but will be major additions to the city going forward.
Yeah, and I can touch on that a little bit more, but I'm open to any questions that you guys may have regarding, additional payment solutions.
Other questions? Anything that you'd like to expound upon?
So in my past employment with the City of Detroit, I implemented kiosk with another vendor, and instantly, once it was implemented, I saw great success. The number one user, and I was able to see real-time data as people are paying. I have a dashboard where I can see, which platform is operating or performing better, whether it's mobile, online payments, phone payments, in-person kiosk payments, and the number one performer instantly was mobile payments. So I'm really looking forward to being able to implement and institute an additional payment solution so that taxpayers are not restricted to the Treasury hours. They would actually have up to 11:59 to be able to pay their property taxes on property tax deadline day. So they're not having to race here from work and try to get here before 4:30 when most people get off work after 5 and have to fight through traffic. Then they just lost the opportunity to be able to pay their property taxes on time. So I'm looking to be able to open that up from having to come into City Hall or just sit at your desk and pay your property taxes online. And that is a real option.
Councilwoman Rutherford?
Yes, when you do this, and I'm excited because I owe y'all something. I want to make sure we do some tutorials before our elderly people who are seniors so they can understand how to use the app operation apps. I've learned that when you do tutorials and you say, this is how this goes, it's not that you're talking down to them, you're just simply giving them the things to engage and empower. So I simply ask that when we do implement these programs, that we do some tutorials, a real tutorial like on cable where most of the seniors watch it at, on TV, or even if we have to take your phone and put it on the screen, not your phone per se, but an example, because they watch all of this.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and so with the vendor that I went with in my previous employer, I actually requested that they not only have a staff member of their department that's not, of their company, that's not being charged to the city's budget, actually stand at the kiosk for at least 2 weeks to, months, and they were able to extend as long as we needed them there, but they were walking people through how to pay on the kiosk. And they were really good with mailings, you know what I'm saying? They constructed the mailings, a how-to guide for people that wanted to pay in different ways, specifically for our senior, our seniors.
Councilwoman?
My follow-up is questions. When is this kiosk coming, and when will we implement it, and what do we need to do to give you the power to do so?
Well, my goal is by the end of 2023, well, during it or by the end of 2023, 2024 fiscal year, but I am but I'm reaching out trying to find the best financial solution for the city of Pontiac.
All right, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
And so the reason why it's not in this budget currently is because, as you heard the council president say, team finance was actually being built this year. And so the treasurer has been wearing multiple hats and not having enough time to just use her brain power. So she has had to fill in multiple seats. And so now that she actually has some time, she's able to work on that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I am too.
Further discussion for treasurer? Thank you again, Director Sadowski. Could we have you come up again?
No problem. Thank you.
Were there additional finance department questions that you would like to probe further? I very briefly, since the crew's here, how's, it's a few months in, if that, a few weeks in, rather, but do you have the tools and support you need in terms of the best sort of engagement, interaction with developing the team and the cohesiveness with the finance department? Do the account and the line items represent enough tools in your toolbox that you might have wanted in other municipalities or seen in other municipalities or other units of government? What are our shortcomings?
Okay, that is a great question. I did speak on the BSNA. There was a clerical typo on my part. It should be 23,000 instead of 13,000. It went down. That would have increased for the software. I just noticed that right now. But as far as your question, we had $200,000 appropriated by the City Council for professional contracted services, and we have expended that to date. So as you are aware, you issued a public hearing notice to increase those expenditures to get the necessary accounting services to bring us up to date by August 30th. And without those staff, we're not able to do it in-house because of the vacancies you saw with the accounts receivable, accounts payable manager, not having payroll in-house. The senior accountants are doing not only accounting work, but their positions below them. So they're doing dual duty. And so that's why we are behind, and that's why we have requested those increased services to catch us up and then train the new hires. During that time, we have the professional services. And that's why we're going to hit that August 30th goal and then keep it running going forward. But as far as everything else in this year's budget, if it's approved as recommended, we should be good to go come January 1st, 2024, for staffing. And the treasurer made a note that the contracted services in the Treasury Department was reduced by 10,000 and needs to be reallocated up for temporary assistance this summer in July during the busy season. And I think those are the only two adjustments that's different than what was in the recommended budget.
So we clocked that, so we know of at least two for finance, one being swap 13,000 for 23,000.
Yes.
To cover that expense for BSNA.
Yes.
And under the treasurer, it's restoring, is it 10,000?
Yes, this restoring the 10,000 back into the original current year's appropriation.
And the name of that line item again is?
Contracted services, I believe.
Services. Yes. Okay. Councilman Rutherford.
So when we hire the people that we're supposed to hire, we do have the opportunity to reduce for contracted services. Because what I don't want to happen is that y'all still using money that y'all no longer need to use because we've hired people to do it. Correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman James.
Would the $200,000 that's being added to the professional services budget, is that going to be enough to carry you through January 1st?
Okay. It is not. So the fiscal year ends June 30th, so we are not going to expend that full amount by, well, it depends how busy the accountants get, and if they add on additional resources to speed it up. Due to the public hearing notice, the actual budget amendment, and then the contract award, unfortunately, that's not going to happen until June 1st now instead of May like we wanted it to. So that's why we're not going to probably spend the full $200,000 by June 30th, but we've also allocated $200,000 for next fiscal year, which should make up the difference, which isn't spent by this June 30th. So we should be covered between the requested appropriation and the increase this year.
Okay.
Councilman Rutherford.
Two parts, one for Deputy Mayor and then one for you. You supersede all these line items still, correct? Like you're in the day-to-day functions of what the financial, so you're going over what he's doing as well, correct? Okay, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
I need to get on the mic. Okay, and so I'm asking this because I think I am a little weary, and I'm just playing the devil's advocate that we're saying give you more money when we still, as a community and a body, don't know where we are. And we got to be careful when we putting all this extra money in, and then you come in here and say, hey, Mill, we $5.8 million in the deficit. I'm going to be real mad because y'all, it's easy to ask for money when we don't know what we have or what the deficit is. But I'm just saying we need to be, I need you to be, like how I asked you before when he got here, the same way. And what I mean by that is I asked him, show me exactly what's coming in and what's going out as far as in certain departments, because in the past, not this administration, people have been abusive of giving raises, abusive of putting funds for stuff we don't need, and then we're going to look like having eggs on our face. So it's not a slap against you, but I don't know you like that. I know him like that. So that's why I asked, is you still watching? Go ahead.
So, no, that's actually a great question. I appreciate it. And I can tell you that not only with this specific budget, but with all of the budgets, I sat down with everyone to walk through before presenting it to you. There definitely are some, minor changes that we have found since it was turned in. But the answer to your question is yes, I am intimately involved with every department on their request. And then additionally, I would say to your question of, hey, where is the money really? One thing that I can say is, even though we don't have, and Director Sadowski and I have laughed about this, about him being an accountant and me just being a person who follows his checkbook. He talked about cash accounting versus accrual accounting. Even though we don't necessarily have everything in the right line items for accounting purposes, from the standpoint of, and he made the comment about, is it in the bank, is it there? I'm following the bank account.
Sorry, thank you for answering that. You
Further
doing all right.
discussion for the finance budget. Thank you, everyone, for your service to the city of Pontiac and its taxpayers, and for being here this evening for Budget Palooza. We are now at communications, the
Yes.
umbrella of communications. We give the floor to the administration and the department director.
I want the first question.
Won't everybody leave at once? Oh, they tossed it to the administration?
I'm sorry, I did not hear you toss it to me. We do have communications, cable and information technology here. The one thing that I will note before Director Bridges gets started is that this is actually a very interesting budget. And it's a very interesting budget because the way we had anticipated setting up this budget for the fiscal year that we are currently in was to have a communications director and to have an IT director. But the person that we had believed was going to be the IT director actually left, and we did bring on Mr. McPhee. And so we did not want to throw him into to the wolves, so to speak. So we combined communications and IT because a lot of what had to happen immediately was communications related. We do think, however, that it is appropriate to have a separate communications department and IT department. So they are being presented today together because they are together today, but it would be our hope that as we go into the next fiscal year, that we actually separate them into their own departments.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, Council. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Mr. Mayor, and everyone that's watching. It has been my great pleasure to join the team here at the City of Pontiac as the Communications Director. This is my first Budget Palooza, and I'm happy to be a part of the process because I was able to assist others with putting their presentations together, so it helped me to become acclimated. And as the Deputy Mayor said, we have combined it because we are all under the same umbrella of sharing out information in different forms and fashions. I'll just make it brief. The Communications Office functions as a clearinghouse of information regarding the activities of the city administration. We distribute information to internal audiences, external audiences. We consider everyone our client. If you're looking for information from the city, we're going to do our best to supply it. The team is comprised of professionals currently assigned to communications, cable, and information technology. And we are anticipating possibly having an additional hire that we've noted on the org chart, an events planner. This person would be performing a role that is exclusively dedicated to increasing the activity of the city throughout the community with the events that come up. I'll just say that we've seen a number of events in the last 6 to 12 months that have been premier and inaugural. We hope to expand on that, but that takes a lot of time and effort to make sure that it goes off without a hitch. So we may come before you on that position in the coming months before the fiscal year is out. Our mission statements, I'll go through them quickly because we've combined our presentations. Communications, our mission is to provide detailed information and messaging in a timely manner to our audiences using all applicable platforms, government channels, our website, and social media. Cable is to provide insight and effective coverage of programs, public meetings, hearings, and events to Pontiac residents via cable television and social media. And finally, info technology, whom we can't do without. Their mission is to support and enhance the delivery of essential government services for all departments to our community by providing reliable, secure, and innovative technological solutions. And what I would like to say is, what you'll find is that with our combined departments, many of us are on call 24/7 when it comes to communications. If there is some type of emergency or information that has to come from the mayor's office, we work first thing in the morning to late at night, Saturdays and Sundays. Cable has to be monitoring those television channels continuously. If they go offline, many of our staff have to come in before, after hours, and on the weekends, and also with IT. If there is a system that goes down, because many of our operations are maintained 24 hours a day, IT is on the case in case some information needs to be conveyed. Many of our departments depend on those functions being continuous. With the organizational chart, you'll see that I have noted amongst our individuals, including our new hire, which is Jake Jefferson. He is the most recent hire that we came before you with, PR and social media specialist. Amongst the group of us, we have more than 115 years of expertise in our individual fields. There's not enough room on the slide to share all the various things that they all do. They're all very good at what they do. And as a team, we come together to find solutions of getting information out expeditiously. And just to show individuals exactly what departments that we serve building and safety, definitely cable, code enforcement, development, both planning and community development, DPW, economic development. You can see the full host of in-house departments that we perform for, but we also collaborate with council. And so when there is a message that we need to put out as a unified force, we do that wherever possible. But also within these departments that you see listed, we actually interact with a lot of other agencies, whether it's WRC, it could be library, it could be OU, it could be a variety of different agencies, Oakland County. We interact with a lot of agencies outside of this particular facility because it affects our residents in many ways, and we have to make sure that we are sharing the same information that they are sharing. We do this in a number of ways. Now, with a lot of organizations, you find they don't have a lot of marketing dollars, especially if it's a municipality. So we have to make efficient and effective use of our opportunities to share information. Social media does that for us. And I'll just share that we have done as great a job as we could to increase our presence on social media, which doesn't cost us anything with Facebook, Twitter, with our YouTube channels and all of those areas. But I'll say, if you notice, when we mention using social media to put these messages out in real time, you'll see that one of our recent announcements with the skate park had a reach of 6,340 individuals. That means 6,000 people got that information in that moment. The next one was about the expungement fair that's coming up. And then the last one, you'll see that had over 10,000 hits to 10,000 individuals who have a vested interest in the skate park because that was the grand opening of a business with Micah 6. Those individuals appreciate hearing about the good news that is happening in our community. And we try to do the best we can to utilize those free avenues because we know that marketing dollars are not, they're not always there, but we need to do the best we can to get the message out in real time. And on the next page, I just want to kind of point out that, it's very important for us to utilize this way of messaging. We have increased our Facebook reach in the last year 355%. That's pretty huge when we notice that between August 2020 and December 2021, this is how much we increased. We reached 208,000 plus people. And you can tell how that pans out by the first graph, which the black line is from August 2020 to December 2021. The blue line is what we've done between January 2022 to date. So that makes a big difference when we're trying to put this messaging out. I'll just iterate that our Instagram reach increased 100%. We had new Facebook followers up 561%. Certainly there are going to be some people that we lose, but it was only 132. So we want to make sure that we're turning things around and looking at the type of information that we're sharing and how effective that it's been, because, our new message connections went up 360%. These are individuals that are taking what they receive in their inbox and moving it forward. So with communications, as I mentioned, I'm so happy to be here. There was no communications director before I got here. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing, we are putting together the program and the format to move forward. And I truly believe in cross-training. Everyone on our team should have some element and understanding of how we're putting these messages out. But we do have some goals in the new year. You'll see that we're in the current process of putting together a newsletter for the community to be mailed out. As Councilwoman Rutherford mentioned, some of our individuals, they're not tech savvy. They're not going to get all these messages and this information digitally, so we're going to send it out hard copy. Our goal is to have this newsletter go out quarterly. It was supposed to go out a few months ago, I will admit, because we have been completing the purchase process for selecting a design print company, and the mayor was adamant that we go through stringent protocols to make sure that we're abiding by a process that goes out for bid appropriately. We're also going to we're going to create a web presence and create and distribute literature for the Anti-Violence Commission. That's coming up. That's an initiative that the mayor truly wanted to put out for the community, and so we are going to tackle that web presence. The mayor has a vision of an app, See, Click, Fix, so that when individuals are in the community, they'll be able to go to their smartphone and literally report something in real time to DPW and code enforcement so that they can act on it accordingly. We are in the process of trying to finalize that process. We want to implement use-driven digital form on the city's website so that individuals who have activities and programs in the community, they don't have to mail something in or just send in an email. We want them to have the ability to input that information on the community calendar themselves, and we're going to take us out of the process. We will have oversight to make sure that it's a public-facing activity, but we want them to have ample opportunity to inform their fellow residents and citizens of what's going on. We also want to update signage. When you look at the budget, you'll notice that I do have a pretty hefty print design budget, because if you notice, before I got here, we had a new logo that was soft launched. We have a number of things that have to be replaced with our new branding, with our new imaging. We have to print. When you look at the amount of newsletters that have to go out quarterly, a lot of items that we have that are on display have to be swapped out. I'll say one thing, we are looking at having digital signage on the lawn in front of the building so that when people drive back and forth, they can get messages, because that'll be very important when that traffic becomes two-way in the future. I'll just also mention that we're looking to have an increased presence in our streets. We'd like to have banners that are on street lamps. We'd like to have a lot of different activities that show what we're doing in and around the city. And I'll say we also, very importantly, is that last message, which is we need to translate every document that needs to be received in another community that has speaks a different language. We need to be able to share this in different platforms in different ways so that our information is being circulated widely in a way that people are able to receive it. Moving forward to cable. Cable department is run partially from the FCC, and the city of Pontiac has two channels, Government Channel 20 and Government Channel 10. We try to put together as much original programming as we can in between those other programs that come to us.
I just want to be able to allow city council members to ask on the communications.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Councilman Rutherford, Pro Tem Carrington.
First question. I know you probably can't go back to the slide, but it's a real genuine question. What is the proper process for when people are trying to use field of the communication office? And so what I mean by that is if there's an event, the communications office works for the city, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so the city includes council, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what's the proper process so for when somebody needs field to film an event or to shoot some pictures? What's the process and how do you do it?
Well, when I came in, I saw that there was a great need to share information amongst the team so that everybody was working from the same playbook. We had the same information to go out and do our various things. So we created communications at pontiac.mi.us. That means if anyone is trying to get any type of assistance from the communications department, it comes to a shared mailbox to the attention of everyone in the department. So if someone wants to make a request for some type of event that they want us to attend to cover in some kind of manner, that's where they would send the information in, and we would collaborate on how we can best approach that event based on the priorities that are in the office at that time. And we would figure a way out of how can we go about covering it in some form or fashion with the resources that we have available, human and technologically.
So the email, once again, is what?
It's communications with an S at pontiac.mi.us.
Okay. My follow-up question is this. Oftentimes when we give flyers, we're giving, what's the turnaround rate to get the flyers put up? And or you stated earlier, because I'm real good at listening, that y'all try to make sure y'all have adequate programming for community members.
Yes, ma'am.
How does a community member actually start being able to have their program on like, what's the process for that? And what's the timeline from when they start trying to have their program on there to when they actually can debut their program on communications?
When you say program, are you speaking of a hard copy program or a flyer, or are you speaking of something that's going to be on?
I'm talking about cable.
On cable, okay.
Yes.
Well, we've not, since I've been here, I have not received a request, to my knowledge, that's come to me that says we want something to be aired. That is a process that we probably need to create, standard operating procedure, which we, at the beginning of the year, were asked to do. And we certainly can do that and look forward to that, because our goal is to increase. What you'll see is when we speak to cable's goals for the upcoming year, we want to increase coverage in the community by 35%. We want it to be quantifiable. We want people to see themselves in organic programming as much as we have an opportunity to do it. Now, we control on cable the programming slots. So to the extent that we are able to plan in advance, schedule, and get our teams out in the field to create any type of filming or taping or whatever needs to happen, we are happy to do that because that's why we're here. And so one thing I've noticed when I showed you the social media postings, we get better response when we have organic depictions, when we have real individuals from the city engaged in activities that involve citizens. So that is our role. And the cable team understands that since I've been here, they've been out in the field exponentially more than they were before, because I believe that is what we're here for. We're here to chronicle the quality of life, the improvement in programs, the change in the administration, all of the activities that are occurring. And I have had the opportunity to receive requests from council, which we are happy to accommodate, whether it's sharing on social media, sharing on our channels. We have been out in the field, and I have definitely made sure that our cable team knows we're taking video of what's available to the public. And sometimes it's not a city-led event, but it's an event in the city that involves citizens. And so to the extent that we can get out, physically, we can't be everywhere at once, but we're going to do our best to cover whatever we can.
Just so I have my last question. You stated, how many people do we have on our film crew right now? Just Phil and...
We have Phil and Tosh, and they're doing great work. We just had a new hire, which one of his, we're trying to get him onboarded as best we can. He's doing a great job, but that'll be another thing that he's going to be trained in, is to go out. He has video in his background, so we want him to be yet another person that assists the cable department. Even though he is public relations and social media, he has that skill set. And so it will be all hands on deck. I've been out there with my camera phone trying to take video because, wherever video needs to be taken, wherever something needs to be documented, a photo taken, whatever, we're going to do our best, and somebody is going to get it done one way or another.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Pro Tem Carrington?
Yes, thank you, President McGinnis. I first just want to commend your department. I know that I've definitely seen the city seen in a more positive light since the communication has got better for this particular city.
Thank you.
So if, in an ideal situation, if when you think about your team structure, how many positions would you like if you thought, if in an ideal situation?
Ideally, I lean towards what Councilwoman Rutherford said about putting more programming on. So if I had a wish list, I'd have 2 more people that were working under Phil, because physically, we have so many great stories to tell in Pontiac, but we can't be everywhere. And so if we had a couple more bodies or the ability to pay for assistance, we can cover more of the things that are happening. What you'll notice is when I say we're on call 24/7, we're working here Monday through Friday during the day, and then we have meetings like this. You've frequently seen me taking a picture. We've got one person down that's running camera. You know, they have to split up shifts, because a lot of times what we do here in the evening, that's in addition to what we're doing during the day. And there are times when we have such great programs that are occurring on the weekend, we just don't have anyone to cover it, because as you all mentioned the other day during one of the late meetings, you know, you're talking to staffers at 10, 11 o'clock at night. And physically, we sometimes have competing issues in our personal life with our professional life, and we'd love to be everywhere because this is the work that we like to do. So more bodies would help.
Are you done, Pro Tem?
Yeah, definitely.
Councilwoman Rutherford?
Thank you.
I just like doing suggestions. I know you are familiar with Specs Howard, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so they oftentimes have internship opportunities. You guys can reach out and have them bring people that are trying to do on-the-ground work. And that's the way to offset what we can't pay, just an idea. Number 2, we have a communications department at Oakland University. They have people that need to do internships and need to do that. So you can market that way. It can cut down costs. You can have young people running around. You can get it filmed. You can get it done. And all it takes is for y'all or the mayor or side or the administration to say, you know, we want an internship opportunity. It may not be paid, it may be just for credits, but some way, somehow, we can go into a partnership like we do everything else in OU and get people that actually want to be on the ground. And the reason why I'm saying this is because Latino population is not oftentimes filmed, and they do some of the best events too. Number 2, in my district, it's so much stuff going on that just needs to be shown, because it can't just be us sitting in front of taking pictures and looking cute. We have to tell the real stories of real people. And so, and number 3, it's because there's certain people, I and myself included, who is anxiously waiting for y'all to get yourselves to the point where we can do this show called Word on the Street that we've been talking about for a year and a half, because it's an opportunity to interview our people, but Phil's so busy, he can't never come do it because he's shooting everything for the administration. That's it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. I think that there have been several individuals, and Phil knows I've said that we need an intern for his department. We need interns. If they only work 4 hours a day, then bring someone in the morning, bring them in the afternoon, because I'm a firm believer that we give them that training. I had an internship prior to starting in my career, and if it wasn't for internships, I wouldn't be standing here before you today, so I totally agree. And they need that valuable experience. And I believe we had interns that are slated to come in June, if I'm not mistaken. We have a program that we're participating in at the city, and I'm looking forward. If they send me someone, we're going to teach them something, because there's some valuable experience to be had. And working under the cable team will give them that, as well as information technology. There's plenty of work. We'd love to share that. I'll just keep it moving for purposes. Like I said, we can program in between some of those perfunctory programs that we must do because of the PEC fees that are involved. But this will align with I just wanted to share that this is just an example of some of the things that have been occurring. Can you start the video? Okay.
Will you tell us the Pontiac City Council will stand with you, arm in arm, to make sure that Pontiac is.
Very high caliber.
We should be giving you a permanent standing ovation. It's definitely
Well, they
has
do great
improved.
work. And a lot of you have seen them out in the field. We do kind of take an approach of why have a static photo when you can hear the sound, sights and sounds of the city. So it is our goal, as you can see. There are many things we want to do. You can tell we've tried to slowly implement new technology here in the council chambers. We've got new cameras, you've got new microphones, we've got new projectors. A lot of times you've seen us struggle through those transitions from the old to the new, but we also want to swap out, as the last part of that group, those speakers there and also the tower deck, because this is how we communicate what's going on in chambers with our community. It's not just folks who are at home, it's not just council meetings, it's charter commission meetings, it's planning meetings, it's zoning board meetings. It's a lot of different things that are occurring, and we want to make sure that all of the technology is responsive to what it is that you're trying to share and convey. We also want to purchase a mobile video, audio, and soundboard system. And when I say that, that's a mouthful. But that's that program that Councilwoman Rutherford was speaking of. That's how we go and we capture programs in the field instead of having to pay contractors. So this year, we're going to mirror the same format of the State of the City that was put in place last year, but the mayor has asked us to research and try to implement buying our own equipment so that you save those renting, contracting costs, and we can start controlling not only how that program is put together, but we can have programs that are done start to finish in the field.
FYI, the DIS is closing, so they selling their equipment. For that, what you're asking for, they're actually going to be selling that equipment. And also, you should look at Studio A will be shutting down, so they're selling their equipment. Only reason why I know as an artist and they have that equipment that you're talking about, it's going to be on sale either at the auction or when they do the actual buyout. So I'm just giving y'all some suggestions to look at a lot of the studios that are in the city, in the state of Michigan, are closing because a lot of people are doing home studios. So that's a way for y'all to buy that equipment at half the cost.
Well, we definitely will look forward to that feedback if you could help us get that information.
And Phil is aware of what I'm talking about as well.
Yes, ma'am. And also, as I mentioned, we want to increase video shoots of City of Pontiac events and programs in the field by 35%. Those are numbers that we can, next year when we go through budget season, we can report out how we improved in our presentation of information. And you asked me for a wish list. If I had a wish list, I would ask that we would have a pool van so that as we're moving around the city and doing activities and what have you, this is something that wouldn't just be ours, but it would be the departments that we could share, because a lot of times when we're hauling equipment we're trying to set up in the field, we have to use our personal vehicles, and some of that equipment doesn't fit, even though we do have the ability to be reimbursed for mileage and use of our vehicles. It would help to have something that is a utility vehicle. Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Brother President. First, let me apologize for my lateness, but sometimes church and family does get in the way of being here sometimes. That in mind, I was at a meeting earlier this week where it was talking about the use of PSAs and getting our message across. Have we either started or plan on using PSAs? Because the film that you said has a kind of lot of type window that would fit.
When you say PSAs, are you saying videos that we create, or are you saying people from the community sharing their video?
No.
Oh, that's exactly, when you see the work that we've done, that technically would be considered a PSA. Like when we did the information for MDOT, that was a last minute activity because we were notified at the very last minute, but we coordinated to have them go out in the field and show exactly what it is people will be experiencing. So that would be considered a PSA. But I've also, I'm sorry.
But I'm thinking about, I know we see it, but can you put it on some of the public channels so they can see it?
They rotate it on our government channels, yes. Okay. And just to let you know, when we put something on social media, that is the reason why we want people to contact us at communications, because it doesn't just come to my inbox, it goes to the team. And when we receive something, Ken is our webmaster, he puts it on the web. Taj and Phil put it on our government channels. I put it on social media, and now with the help of Jake, we rotate it on social media. And then we take another approach so that every single thing we do, depending on the message, we send it where it's applicable. So I might even put something out to our our individuals on email in a message from the mayor's office. So the whole goal is that it doesn't just go to one location, it goes to 5 and 6 locations so that it's overlapping. And I mentioned our printing budget. You know, we want to also not limit ourselves to digital messaging. We want to make sure it's printed.
One last question. Is it possible then that you could send it to each of us so we can put it on our own district social
Absolutely.
media pages?
So what we can do is start increasing the sharing of what we do instead of just sending it out and putting it where it has to go. We can also make sure that you get every single message that we send out.
Thank you.
Councilman Rutherford?
The pool vans, they cost about $47,000, right?
No, we take used.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm looking online. For sale.
We'll take whatever is available, even if it's cycled through from within the administration. It's just having that need to be out and about. Cable doesn't need to be in the cable office during the day. They should be out in the field doing what we do best, which is gathering information and compiling it.
I'm looking. Go ahead.
Councilwoman James?
Yes, I also add my voice to the fabulous work that your department is doing. We have seen such a huge difference, really, since you've been hired. And so it's just, it's really been wonderful.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for all your hard work. Glad to see someone have been hired in with social media that's going to be focusing mainly on social media, because I'm still kind of concerned of how well we are addressing the various generational segments within the city. And, you know, depending on who you are, you know, what generation, age group you're in, it depends on, you know, you're using one particular or more social media formats than others.
Mm-hmm.
So will that person be able to begin to look at how we are targeting various age groups
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing, and to be able to really begin to send more targeted messages through social media?
Yes.
And because I'd like to, you know, being able to reach the under 20, the 25 to 35, and to be able to focus a message to those residents would be really great if we begin to really come up with a game plan for
Yes.
social media with respect to these various age groups.
I wholeheartedly agree. That's why Jake is with us. He's got that background. One thing he and I are going to do, because he's been on the job for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but many of you have spoken with him because he's very aggressive in gathering information, turning it around in a very creative manner and getting it out there. So he has hit the ground running. But one thing we have discussed when things kind of get to a evening out phase is going over the analytics of how effective we are reaching individuals, what messages are helping. We make sure that, and because I was so stretched in my timing, a lot of messages weren't getting out in as timely a fashion as I would appreciate it, because they need to go out in real time. But we also send information out to our seniors who are listed in our senior pages, who are signed up for that. We send out messaging to them, so we don't want to leave anyone out. We're going to expand. I've been in contact with Gladys over at our senior center for their lists, so we're going to expand our email lists so that when we send out messaging, and that's another thing I just recently had a conversation about, sending out messaging about hiring. We are hiring. Also sending out messages, we need you to sign up for our newsletter. So there's a lot of stuff that he has to hit the ground running with, because there's so much good information. Physically, we just have to catch up with it. And so with his hire, we hope to have him tackle that on his list of things to do.
Further discussion? Please proceed.
Infotechnology, our favorite, because none of us could make it happen here without them. They are needed by every department. They do everything from acclimating new employees to the processes, buying the computer equipment that we need. They overhaul programming, software programming that you heard the finance director speak to. They are intrinsic to everything we do. And in the last year, they've done so many great things. One thing they did was they initiated a massive overhaul of the website. So just like we're working to get these newsletters out, we are also going through the website line by line by line. And I mean, I'm capturing every period that's in not there. If it's a form that's not up to date, we are in the process and probably nearly towards the finish line. It was supposed to launch before, but then we just had to do a deep dive and make sure everything was correct, up to date, and the information that the citizens need. And so they initiated that process, and we're just about complete with that. They've also installed new network firewall security appliances, new network switches for connectivity throughout City Hall to improve performance and security, a new network router for facilitating connectivity to the internet and other services. Office 365 has been completed to replace the aging exchange program. Outline new security awareness training for employees, and that's going to start this month. And they've continued refreshing computers to replace outdated or failing user devices. And if you noted just in our last meeting when Cody was here late meeting with council, he described how they were replacing the computers at the district court. So those types of activities are very intense. They're generally on top of things, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, and on the weekends. And Cody is, he's just been here in the last so many months, and he's just hit the ground running, making sure that a lot of the things that needed addressing are being looked at, not only for now, but for their long-term effectiveness for the entire city and the administration. So he and Ken and Kim Gamez, who handles the help desk, they are a united front that's really helping us. I'm not certain if any of you have had an opportunity to interact with Ken lately, but if you ask him for something, he's usually done with it before you actually had a chance to check and make sure that it was done. So he does great work, Cody does great work, Kim does great work, and I'm very proud of the work that they do and hope that pretty soon, the troubleshooting will end and they can start being more proactive in finding new ways to help us be more effective in our assignments. Their goals for 23-24, finalize revision and update of the website and launch the new site with all current information. That includes council information, that includes the clerk's office information, and information of our intergovernmental agencies and resources. So that is another thing that they're going to do, in addition to helping us with the Anti-Violence Commission site. They're going to update the Wi-Fi infrastructure to replace the current outdated solution. They're going to improve general user and IT staff training, because a lot of this new programming, we need to be walked through it. And that is something that while they're willing to stop what they're doing, we kind of need to have group training sessions that they've already identified need to happen. They've prepared the ground floor office space for employees, and they've updated internet speeds at City Hall to scale for increased usage requirements. And as I mentioned, I believe that each one of us relies heavily on this team, and I give them great kudos for all that they do. And I'm happy to take any questions. And not only that, Cody and Ken are here also if there are very specific questions, including Phil as well.
Thank you, Director Bridges, for your presentation. Councilwoman Relaford, and then Councilman Parker.
I need to talk to Mr. Phil, if you can get on the mic.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Mr. Phil, 2 questions.
Yes.
If you could have your dream equipment, what would it be?
It will be a brand new studio. Because the brand new studio will bring the dream equipment.
Okay.
But currently, at this time, we have to utilize spaces in our city, spaces in City Hall, and other spaces like town halls or any other event that we use for our PSAs.
Okay. My following question is this. So when we get this all up and running as far as the new equipment that you're going to get, I know that's your dream. I just wanted you to say it out there because, when you said things happen.
Right.
I guess my question, this will be for the administration. is there any funding or any way that we could start having the grant department pursue not programming funding, but actual funding for communications? Because remember, ARPA dollars are supposed to be for enhancement and improvement of the community. And one of the things that we lacked when, not y'all, this ain't no shade, but one of the things we lacked was when COVID happened, there was a disconnect in communication. So couldn't we then say to good old Dave Coulter, we need money for communications and to get the ball rolling into that?
The short answer to that question is yes. The longer answer to that question is a return question, and just you've heard some wish list items, but if we are going to specifically ask for that type of assistance, we just need to be a little bit more focused on exactly how we're going to use their money, right? So, but yes, that is definitely a program that can be built out.
Right, and the reason why I asked the administration is because we can get money for parks, we can get money for shells, surely we can get money for communications, because communication is king. Last question, Phil, and I'll let you go. For if someone was trying to shoot anything here, where would they shoot it at, and do we have furniture available or props available for them to be able to use other than the blue screen? Go.
At this time, we do have, right now, we're using the space downstairs, which is the shrine room, and we can use that to shoot our shows within City Hall. But going forward, as we are looking for studio space and to have either build or have studio space, it would be, I say this area right here would be good to use, because the chairs, before the chairs wouldn't move. Now the chairs, before Paula was here, Kim was here, you remember, it was like stadium chairs, you remember. But now we can utilize this, and going forward, I would like to purchase some props. I would like to purchase some props like some fake plants or something that would make it look different in here, and make it unique to what not only administration but also council. And can I say something also? Yeah. We also have our YouTube channel currently, and which all the channels all the PSAs are currently on there, and they're playlisted. And you can it's not only on Facebook, but it's on YouTube also. So like when you were cleaning up the parks and we interviewed you, you can see that. You can see those on there, right? You can see those on there 24/7. So we have multiple avenues that we've been working on under the under communication, and it's growing. I mean, we're moving in that positive direction. There's always more to do, but we're moving in that direction.
Thank you, Phil. Any other questions, Councilwoman Rutherford?
You about answered everything I need. Thank you.
Councilman Parker.
I only have one question.
Yes, sir.
Will the council ever get computers that will allow you to do Zoom from your office?
Zoom? Mm-hmm. Yes, we do Zoom right now.
I'm talking about from office, the computers in the offices.
Oh, in this?
Yeah. The computers that's in the offices.
I think that's a IT question.
Okay. Well, I thought we was at IT, but
okay. No. Well, we'll come right. I'm gonna let Councilman Nicholson answer his question. Then we're gonna go to the budget questions per department.
I think all you have to do is just because I've had it before, is just request a webcam, and usually the webcams have a microphone embedded in them, and they can hook it in for you. Then you should be good to go. I have some questions about numbers.
Yes.
In the cable fund, what is why is there such a large allocation for sick and vacation allocation? Is there something unique or?
Well, we currently
$120,000.
Well, previously, we currently within the cable. Before it was just me. I was the only person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some departments that have 10, 15 employees,
and now we have.
That isn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not near. This is a much larger number.
Oh, I don't see, and I don't know about the
$120,000.
And I don't know about the. Yeah, and I don't know about the numbers on.
Okay,
on
okay,
that.
yeah, it's probably, yeah, an extra zero or so. Okay, very good, so we'll look at that. And then the other question that I had was related to, in the IT department, where will we see is that, I see maintenance and computer equipment, but software expenses, we asked earlier in the finance department with some of the BSNA hook-ins, where do we find that line item accounted for?
Let me read this. Yeah, the maintenance computer equipment should cover all of our 365 licensing. That covers support contracts we have. That also covers the offsite backups where we store our emergency backups for data, as well as some like security certificates for the websites and some other online services.
I'm looking to see where are we booking the expense for the BSNA enhancements? Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, so they're spread throughout in what's the name of the? Oh, does it? Okay. Okay, very good, thank you. All set.
All right, thank you, Councilman Nicholson. At this time, any other budget-related questions? Councilwoman Rutherford.
Thanks so much. So, my question has to do with in regards to professional services. You guys have for $50,000. Does that mean that you got? I guess this is a question for the. Excuse me, sir. I think it's a question for the director. You have $50,000 in other professional services. Can you break that down to me, please? Is that for cable? It's communications 227. The line item is just so you know. 101-2278, excuse me, -227-901 -00. I'm saying it right. That it's 102-227-818-000. That's what I said, unless I'm seeing it wrong.
Yep, you're right.
Other professional services is a $50,000 budget.
Yeah. Your mic's off.
Sorry, I should know that. As you notice, the communications budget is new because it was just created within the last couple of months because of my hire. And so we are forecasting moving in the future. And it's probably more of a projected wish list, not something that is designated to be spent, but more of if we need to hire an outside agency to assist with public relations. It could be somebody that's going to assist with maybe some state of the city activity in terms of that contracted activity. It could be some, just having an ability to hire an outside agency if it should come up, to have that in our in our toolbox in case we need it, as opposed to coming after the fact and saying we have this need. We do, as I mentioned, have a larger budget for communications that's never been there, but it's for all of the printing that comes our way. I've been tasked with doing a quarterly newsletter. I'm currently getting ready to do brochures for the senior centers. There are a number of that. We've got to do all kinds of literature and printed materials for anti-violence commission. So a lot of these new activities that are coming out of the new administration, it's becoming a communications product. And to the extent that we have to hire maybe an outside consultant to do some PR or what have you, we were hoping to have the opportunity to do that. It could be design services similar to what's happening with the newsletter. So that's where that line item comes from.
And my follow-up is for printing and binding service, you got $175,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Earlier you said that you guys are looking to outsource that. But on the flyer that you showed us, aren't we using the same person to do the flyers, the cards, and everything that? So my question then becomes, why would we fix something if it ain't broke? Don't fix it.
Well, the $175,000 is all encompassing of what I was just describing. There are newsletters that have to be printed, and that's print, design, mailing. That includes postage. That's with that particular effort. That's just one newsletter, and then there are pamphlets and what have you. We have someone who's been hired that is doing well with design, but these are more printing charges and those types of activities.
you, Mayor.
Along with that, there's another item that I think Paula is leaving out because of her years of experience in the industry. We can design all of the individual items, but when it comes time to actually do print layout and have them printed, there is another design that has to go into effect to make them all fit on the page properly. So so we can design all of the individual flyers, do all of the copy, but then when we take it to the printer, we say, hey, here are all of the individual materials, make it fit properly in 4 pages. So there's an additional design cost there.
Thank you, Deborah.
Oh, I would just add, that also includes, as I was mentioning, we have a lot of legacy signage around the city that, as we move into a new brand, we need to replace all of those costs. So that pretty much encompasses that effort.
Thank you. Councilman Goodman.
Mine's not a budget question. I just want to say thank you, Paula, for doing a really good job. All of my colleagues have so far been very happy and, at least getting answers from you, and they seem to be lobbing praise at the communications all across the board. So I just wanted to say thank you for giving a really good presentation.
Thank you so much.
Is there any more budget questions concerning communications? Councilman Nichols.
I just want to, I've been in district projects and things like that, looking at replacing signage here and there. I just want to caution, because of where the city's gotten to such a more organized place where it was before, many of those signs were either created by hand from residents or through a lot of fundraising and community activism. So if there are opportunities, if somebody, just to make sure that we can communicate back and forth, because we might have more information just about signs within our districts. But then also maybe considering if we don't end up using some of those dollars for maybe framing and gifting them to the people or the organizations that did, do that hard work.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions concerning communications budget? Hearing none about the cable budget. Are there any questions concerning the cable budget? Hearing none. IT budget. Director Bridges, we definitely like to thank you for your team's work. It's definitely been a great year. I definitely have seen the city in a more positive light just by being on Facebook. I seem to share everything that the city shares. So I'm definitely impressed with your department. Councilwoman Relford.
You passed the test, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
I get it, but he wanted to ask you something over here.
No.
Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. I just want to thank the communications director. She has been very helpful to the clerk's office with getting messages and dealing with the media. Prior to this administration, the clerk was having to serve as his own press person in combating false messages. So I just want to thank Director Bridges. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Any further discussion on this department's hearing? Thank you all for your time this evening and best wishes as we continue this budget review process. The next department's up for our budget hearings is next Thursday, starting at 5:00 p.m. Department of Public Works, commonly known as DPW, and Recreation. All right. Is there any public comment this evening? Are there any requests for public comment? Any requests for public comment? Any requests for public comment? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the resolution to proceed in closed session to consider and discuss a confidential legal opinion concerning the city's legal obligations regarding the Phoenix Center and budget-related implications?
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman. This is pursuant to Section 8, subsection H of the Open Meetings Act, MCL 15.268, subsection H. And any discussion? Hearing no further discussion. Roll call and adoption of the resolution. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis?
Yes.
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 We are proceeding now into closed session at 7:17 p.m.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. How's it going?
Going well so far.
First Lady's doing well.
goddaughter was in a concert. Her school had a concert, you see.
I think we're over.
The clerk is still not.
Could I please have a motion?
Moved by Carrington.
To
Because
come
what
out
my
of
Rutherford-
closed session. It's been moved by Carrington, seconded by Rutherford, that we come out of closed session. On the vote to come out of closed session, what say you, Parker?
Yes.
James?
Yes?
Carrington?
Yes.
Rutherford?
Yes.
Nicholson?
Yes.
McGinnis says yes. By a vote of 6-0, the motion made by Carrington and seconded by Rutherford to come out of closed session prevails. We are now out of closed session at 8:07 p.m. All right, with that, are there any final items or motions? Hearing nothing further, motion to adjourn?
So move.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Parker. It's been supported by Councilman Rutherford. Hearing no further discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Carrington,
Yes.
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 That motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thank you all.